Ever planted cucumbers that started out amazing, pumping out fruit like crazy, and then somewhere around midsummer, everything just fell apart? The leaves got covered in that white powdery stuff. The fruit started coming out bitter or misshapen, and eventually the whole plant just gave up on you. Here's the thing most gardeners don't realize. The problem isn't your soil, it's not your watering, and it's probably not even disease, at least not at first. The real issue is that your cucumber plant got too crowded with its own leaves, and that set off a chain reaction that ruined everything. In this video, I'm going to show you the complete process for keeping your cucumbers healthy and productive all season long. And it comes down to one technique that looks absolutely terrible, but works like magic. Stick around to the end, where I'll show you how this same method actually triggers continuous new growth, so you can be harvesting cucumbers right up until frost. Let's get into it. Growing. Cucumbers should be one of the easiest things in the garden, and for the first few weeks it usually is. But then something happens, and most gardeners just accept it as normal. They figure cucumbers are just a short-season crop, and that's that. But I'm here to tell you, it doesn't have to be that way. Once you understand what's actually going wrong and how simple the fix is, you'll wonder why you didn't try this years ago. So let's start by understanding why cucumbers struggle in the first place. Here's what typically happens. You plant your cucumbers in late spring. They take off beautifully, and by early summer you've got more cucumbers than you know what to do with. Life is good. But then you start noticing some changes. The lower leaves start looking a little pale, maybe yellowing around the edges. Then you spot that telltale white powdery coating on some of the foliage. Your fruit production slows down, and the cucumbers you do get might be bitter or weirdly shaped. Within a few weeks, the whole plant looks rough, and you're pulling it out, thinking, well, that's just how cucumbers go. But here's what's actually happening inside that plant. As your cucumber grows, it puts out leaf after leaf after leaf. Those leaves start overlapping, crossing over each other, creating this dense jungle of foliage. And while that might look lush and healthy from the outside, underneath it's a disaster waiting to happen. There's no airflow in there. The humidity builds up because moisture can't escape. And that warm, humid, stagnant environment is exactly what powdery mildew and other fungal diseases are waiting for. They thrive in those conditions. But disease isn't even the only problem. All that dense foliage makes it incredibly difficult for pollinators to find your flowers. Cucumber flowers are yellow for a reason. That bright color is a visual signal to bees and other pollinators saying, hey, come over here. But if those flowers are buried under layers of leaves, the bees can't see them. They can't navigate through that jungle to reach them. And when pollination fails, you end up with fruit that starts to form, but then gets soft at the tip, shrivels up, and falls off. A lot of gardeners see this and think they have a calcium problem or a watering issue. 9 times out of 10 with cucumbers, it's a pollination problem caused by too much foliage. And here's one more thing. All those lower leaves that are getting shaded out by the upper growth, they're not doing much for the plant anymore. They're not getting enough sun to produce energy efficiently, but the plant is still spending resources trying to maintain them. It's like paying employees who aren't actually working. Eventually, you've got to let them go, so the productive parts of the operation can thrive. So how do you know if your cucumber plant needs attention? Let me walk you through the warning signs to look for. First, check those lower leaves, the ones closest to the ground. If they're turning yellow or looking pale and tired compared to the upper growth, that's a sign they're not getting enough light and they're becoming a liability rather than an asset. Second, look for any white powdery coating on the leaf surfaces. This is powdery mildew, and once you see it, you know the airflow situation has gotten bad. The good news is catching it early means you can still turn things around. Third, examine any fruit that's forming. Are you seeing cucumbers that start to develop but then get soft at the blossom end and rot away? That's pollination failure, and it's telling you the bees aren't getting to your flowers effectively. Fourth, do you have plenty of flowers but no fruit setting? Same issue. The pollinators can't find them or can't reach them through all that foliage. And fifth, has your plant gone from producing like crazy to barely putting out anything? That sudden drop-off usually means the plant has gotten so congested that it's struggling to function properly. If you're seeing any of these signs, the solution is defoliation. And I know that word sounds aggressive. It sounds like you're going to hurt your plant. But I promise you, this is exactly what your cucumber needs, and it's going to respond beautifully once you give it some breathing room. Before you start removing leaves, you need to understand what should go and what should stay. This is important because you don't want to just hack away randomly. You want to be strategic about it. First priority for removal is any leaf that's near the ground or touching the soil. These leaves are in what I call the splash zone. When you water or when it rains, soil particles splash up onto those low leaves. And soil is where a lot of fungal spores live. Those leaves are basically inviting disease onto your plant. They need to go. Second, look for leaves that are crossing over other leaves or reaching into neighboring plants if you have multiple cucumbers growing near each other. These crossing branches create pockets where air can't circulate. Every time you see a leaf from one area stretching over into another area and creating overlap, that's a candidate for removal. Third, look at the interior of your plant. Are there leaves in there that are getting completely shaded out by the leaves above them? If a leaf isn't getting good sun exposure, it's not producing much energy for the plant. You can remove it without any real loss. Fourth, any leaf that's already showing signs of disease should come off immediately. If you see powdery mildew or yellowing or brown spots, remove that leaf and get it out of the garden. Don't compost it. Throw it in the trash so you're not spreading the problem. Now here's what you keep. You want to preserve the healthy upper growth, the leaves that are in full sun and actively photosynthesizing. You want to keep leaves on the exterior of the plant that aren't causing congestion problems. The goal isn't to strip the plant bare. The goal is to open it up. A good rule of thumb is that you can remove about 30 to 40% of the leaves and your cucumber will do just fine. These leaves are big. They're generating plenty of energy. The plant has more than it needs, and removing the unproductive ones actually helps it focus resources on the leaves that are doing real work. If you're enjoying this video, you'll love my free weekly gardening guides. They go way deeper than I can here. Sign up free in the description and get one in-depth guide every week on keeping your cucumbers productive all season long. All right, let's continue. Let's walk through exactly how to do your first defoliation. Timing matters here. You want to do this on a dry day, ideally in the morning after any dew has evaporated. Pruning when the plant is wet is an invitation for fungal spores to enter through the fresh wounds, so wait for dry conditions. For tools, you can honestly just use your hands for most of this. Cucumber stems are tender enough that you can pinch off leaves cleanly at the base. If you prefer using pruning shears or scissors, that's fine too. Just make sure they're clean. Wipe them down with rubbing alcohol before you start. Begin at the bottom of the plant and work your way up. Take off everything that's touching or nearly touching the soil. Then look for those crossing leaves I mentioned, the ones reaching over into areas where they don't belong. Grab them at the base and remove them cleanly. As you work, you're creating clear space around the main stem. You want to be able to see the stem, see the soil around the base of the plant, and see daylight coming through. When you step back, the plant should look noticeably more open. You'll probably be able to see flowers that were hidden before. That's exactly what you want, because now the bees can see them too. I'm not going to lie to you. The first time you do this, it feels wrong. You're going to look at your cucumber plant and think, I just destroyed it. It looks so bare. But I promise you, within a week, you're going to see new growth emerging and your plant is going to look healthier than it did before. The leaves that remain are going to perk up because they're getting better airflow. The flowers are going to get pollinated because they're visible now. Trust the process. Now that you've done your initial defoliation, the key is to stay on top of it throughout the season. This isn't a one-time thing. Your cucumber is going to keep putting out new growth, and some of that growth is going to start causing the same problems all over again if you let it. Make it a habit to check your cucumbers once a week. Walk through and look for any new crossing growth, any leaves that are starting to shade out the interior, any lower leaves that are yellowing or showing early signs of disease. Catch these early and remove them right away. It takes about 2 minutes per plant once you get in the rhythm, and it's so much easier than trying to rescue a plant that's already gotten out of control. What you're looking for is signs that the plant is responding well. Is new growth emerging from the top, healthy green color on the remaining leaves, flowers that are clearly visible and getting bee traffic, and fruit that's developing normally without soft spots or deformities. If you're seeing all of that, you're doing it right. Let's talk specifically about pollination, because this is where defoliation really pays off. Cucumber plants have separate male and female flowers, and you need both for successful fruit production. The male flowers show up first, and they're on thin stems. The female flowers come a bit later, and you can recognize them because they have a tiny cucumber shape right behind the flower. Bees visit the male flowers, pick up pollen, then visit the female flowers and transfer that pollen. That's how you get cucumbers. But here's the thing. Bees navigate visually. They need to see those yellow flowers to find them. And they need a clear path to fly in, do their work, and fly out. When your plant is a dense wall of foliage, the bees either can't find the flowers or they can't access them easily. By defoliating, you're creating what I think of as flight paths into the plant. The flowers become visible from a distance, and there's room for bees to maneuver. If you've done everything right and you're still seeing pollination failure, you might be in a situation where you just don't have enough pollinator activity in your area. In that case, you can hand pollinate. Just take a small paintbrush or even a cotton swab, dab it in a male flower to pick up pollen, then dab it into the center of a female flower. Do this in the morning when flowers are open and you'll get fruit. Let me cover some common problems you might run into. First, what if you got a little too enthusiastic and took off more leaves than you meant to? The plant looks really bare and you're worried you overdid it. Take a breath. Cucumbers are resilient and long as you left some healthy foliage up top, the plant will recover. It might slow down for a few days while it adjusts, but it will push out new growth. Just hold off on any more pruning for a week or two and let it bounce back. Second, what if powdery mildew was already well established before you defoliated? Removing the affected leaves will help slow the spread, but you might need to take additional action. A spray of 1 part milk to 9 parts water applied to the remaining leaves can help suppress powdery mildew. Do this in the morning so the leaves dry during the day. Keep up with your defoliation to maintain good airflow going forward. Third, you're still getting misshapen fruit even after opening up the plant. If pollination access isn't the issue, consider whether your watering has been inconsistent. Cucumbers need steady moisture, and irregular watering can cause fruit to develop unevenly. Also, make sure you're harvesting regularly, because leaving overripe cucumbers on, the vine signals the plant to slow down production. Fourth, the plant stopped producing entirely even after pruning. This sometimes happens if the plant has exhausted itself from an early heavy harvest. Give it a dose of balanced fertilizer, keep it well watered, and continue maintaining good airflow. It may push out a second flush of growth and start producing again. Fifth, you're just not sure which leaves are safe to remove. When in doubt, start conservative. Remove only the obvious candidates, the ones touching the ground, the ones with visible disease, and the ones that are clearly crossing into other plants. You can always remove more later once you see how the plant responds. Now for the bonus I promised at the beginning. Here's something that really surprised me when I first learned it. Defoliating doesn't just prevent problems, it actually triggers new growth. When you remove those lower unproductive leaves, you're sending a signal to the plant that it needs to keep growing, upward and outward. Even bush variety cucumbers have an upward growth habit. And when you encourage that by removing the stagnant lower growth, the plant responds by putting out fresh, productive foliage and more flowers. Combine this with harvesting your cucumbers at the right size. Don't let them get huge and seedy, and you create a continuous cycle. The plant keeps growing, keeps flowering, keeps setting fruit, and you keep harvesting. I've had cucumber plants go strong from June all the way until the first frost in October using this method. That's months of production from plants that most gardeners would have pulled out by August. If you've made it this far, you clearly care about getting the most out of your garden. I send one free detailed gardening guide to your inbox every week. Link is in the description. You won't regret it. I really hope you give this a try, and when you do, let me know how it works for you in the comments. It makes my day to hear about your successes. Good luck with those cucumbers.